Sarah Breskman is the author of 4 books. She has been practicing QHHT for over a decade and has worked with over 1,000 clients, giving her information on their past life memories about Atlantis, Lemuria, extraterrestrial visitors to our planet. And she's also working with people who are connected to their higher selves, who are giving information about future events and some contemporary events around us right now, like 3i Atlas. And she's here today on Exopolitics today to share this amazing information.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Well, welcome back to the show, Sarah.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, great to have you back. I mean, you're always doing so many things. I'm seeing you doing so many conferences out there. You're very, very active. So how do you do it?
Oh my gosh, I don't really know. But it is, honestly, it's a lot of fun for me because I absolutely am so passionate about finding out this information and sharing it with people and just basically helping people, because how would other people really have access to all this information? And that's basically what I love doing, is researching. I consider myself more of a researcher, even though I am a hypnotherapist. What I do is I have a bunch of different hypnosis subjects who I use, who have like an amazing clear channel to their higher self. And I'll research by using them under hypnosis and tapping into their higher self. And they never meet one another. And I can investigate certain things through each one of them. So instead of having just one source, I have multiple. And that's, in a sense, how I do my research.
Well, yeah, that is very much the way a researcher works, that you work with multiple sources rather than yourself as the fountain for the information, that you're looking at other people's research and always comparing, contrasting, refining. And, it's worth mentioning that you have been doing similar work to Dolores Cannon, who really pioneered QHHT. And in 2023, you won the Dolores Cannon Award for research.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to just kind of like talk about that, because I think it is important that it kind of like really shows the dedicated research you do in QHHT.
Yes, thanks. In 2023, I was awarded the Dolores Cannon Award because of all the information I've been putting out, not only through my books, but I'm constantly speaking about the types of things I learn all over the world, actually. So it was an honor to receive that award.
Yes, I think that was well-deserved. Certainly from what I've read of your books, that you really do go to a lot of effort to get some really great information from your clients. So now you mentioned already that you work with a number of clients whose higher self you're able to establish a connection to, and they're giving you a lot of information. So I know we talked about this in our last interview, but I think it's just very important for people to understand that there is a process here for getting a clear connection to one's higher self. So you want to just explain how you do that?
Sure. I essentially hypnotize someone by bringing them into a very relaxed state. And I also regress them. I'm talking about a typical client. When they come to me for a session, I regress them and I bring them to the deepest level of trance, which feels like the state that everyone goes through when they wake up in the morning and they still have access to their dreams. That's actually the deep theta state. And that's what it feels like when the person is in deep hypnosis. It feels very similar to that state. And then I access their higher self, which is in a sense, and everybody has a higher self, the part of everyone that knows everything about them. It's like, if you know how people talk about, well, ask your gut, sit with yourself and ask your gut. I'm just communicating directly to that part. And that part of each and every person knows everything about themselves. But here's the thing, is you take anyone, you bring them to this state, you're actually accessing universal consciousness. And I call it the higher self because this is a higher version of the person. This version of each and every person often says they're not fully incarnated in the body, and they work basically on the other side. They are the part of everyone that you could consider source or God. And so this is the part that I speak to. So oftentimes I see everything because I'm told everything from a higher perspective. And that's, in a sense, what I'm doing. Now, for my research, it's different than a paying client. For my research, I have certain people that I really enjoy working with. And these are people, so the way I come across these people is I love using people that don't have conscious awareness of the stuff that I'm working on. These are people that maybe, their husband or wife wanted them to get a session. They have never read my books. It's important. And right now, my hypnosis subjects, are people like, one's a school teacher, one's a nurse. They have different jobs where they're not really into this. They don't have the background of somebody that has watched all these shows, because that's very important for me when I'm researching, because I want to find these people, and those are the best subjects. So I have a bunch of them that I'm using for my information.
Well, yeah, I remember reading Dolores Cannon's Convoluted Universe books, and she did the same thing. I mean, she had a number of clients, and she connected with their higher self, and often that would be in that trance session where after the session, the client would wake up and would say, well, what happened? That wouldn't have any conscious recollection. And Dolores would give them the tape or whatever. And for some of them, it was kind of like shocking, because, they were devout Christians, and all of a sudden they're reading stuff about reincarnation and aliens. And it's just like, it was outside of their worldview. So you're finding something similar with your clients?
Yes, it's always really interesting to me. Like, one of my hypnosis subjects, actually, her daughter made her get a session, and this woman, my hypnosis subject, had like 6 grandchildren. She wanted to heal her allergies, and here she gets regressed, and she's remembering being an extraterrestrial coming to Earth for the first time, and realized that she was like allergic to the environment. And what's really amazing too is what it feels like to all of a sudden gain this wisdom that they didn't have before the session. It feels like, everything makes sense. Not like, oh my God, this is too much, because you're never shown anything you're not ready for. You just wouldn't see it. And that's like the best type of hypnosis subject. So yeah, clients, everyone right now, the brains of most humans have changed since when Dolores Cannon was doing her work. So she did her work 30 years ago. And whether or not people realize this, the human consciousness evolution is occurring. So the brain of everyone is very different. Everyone's mind. People can go deeper into these states while feeling more awake and aware. And that's really good for people that want to make quick changes, because even when I started doing this in 2009, my clients were different. They would have more of a sensation of being unconscious, and then you would wake someone up and they would be totally shocked. And that's also because information was stored so much in a separate place than where it is now. Now it's almost as if the information has a consciousness itself and it's more acceptable. So it's rising and people can tune into so much more. And that's why, people that do any type of work like this, it's so much easier. There's so much that is starting to come to the surface because our consciousness is ready for it. So it's super exciting.
Yeah, one of the things that I find very attractive about QHHT is that it is fundamentally, I believe, self-empowering, because you're really getting people to, one, take note that they have a higher self, two, that they can communicate with it, and three, that you can establish a direct connection with a person's higher self, and that can help them to be self-empowered, as opposed to like channeling, whether it's channeling extraterrestrials, celestial beings, inner earth beings. In a way, you're kind of giving your power away to these beings because, they're the font of knowledge. But when you're connecting a person with their higher self, I think it's self-empowering. So you want to elaborate on that?
It's all about self-empowering, really, because anybody that does anything like this, they themselves can get the answers to all the questions they've always wanted. And it feels a lot more profound when the answer is coming from deep within yourself and coming from your higher self. And then you realize, wow, no one could possibly have power over you. And you become more of like a magical being, a more empowered person. In fact, in many of the ancient cultures, people had to go through something like this. I mean, it's just called QHHT now, and all these modalities are called different things now, but really these are ancient practices. And then when corruption and control came around, there was a big movement to try to keep the power away from the people. So whenever people just sit quietly with themselves or meditate, they become much more empowered. And doing any of these practices makes you much more empowered. So yeah, it is all about being, self-empowering the person. Definitely.
Yeah, can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that process where, like in the ancient world, people were more familiar with this process, that they would do initiations, or there'd be secret societies where people would be all about kind of like connecting with their higher self, as opposed to those that are into worshiping gods or giving their power away to otherworldly beings?
Mhm. Oh my gosh, this has been going on for so many centuries and through all the ancient cultures. And you can still see this show up even in a lot of the tribes today that still carry this forward. Even in India, everyone had to do a process like this. And they would do these deep meditations. I believe it's called sadhana. And everyone had to do it. And that allowed you to really step into your purpose and become more of your true self. So it's incredibly empowering. Even when I wrote my book, A Hypnotist Journey from the Trail to the Star People, and I regressed my client, her name was Les, and through her past life came this man named Anawaya. He was a Native Cherokee man from the 1800s. It said throughout his culture, throughout many lives, he had cultivated this type of meditation. And he was, in a sense, doing something very similar, where he was able to tune into other lives that he was having, or other future lives. He could tune into even ancient ancestors. So it becomes an incredibly profound experience, because that's what you're doing. You're just simply quieting your conscious mind and tuning really deeply into this temple within.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very kind of interested in what it would be like, what a person would be like who is clearly in touch with their higher self, and that communication channel is working very well. in a high-tech society where, like we are right now, we're moving into this world where all of these incredible technologies are coming online, and soon there's going to be disclosure, and there's going to be free energy, anti-gravity, med beds, all of those things. But these are all technologies that that we can engage with. But on the other hand, you have this connection to the higher self. So what would it be like? And maybe we're speculating here, but what would it be like for someone who has a clear connection to their higher self, living in this kind of future, living in this very highly advanced technological society?
Well, that's really the hope. I mean, what has been hoped for with humanity is to get more in touch with their higher self, to get more in touch with their own divine essence, and to become like a master of themselves, like a spiritual master of themselves. And that's the hope. And to really evolve our consciousness to a degree so that we can match the technology. But it's interesting. It seems like from a lot of my hypnosis subjects and even clients that's part of the reason for the 3-eye atlas. Intervention did need to come. And so there is almost like an intervention with this 3-eye atlas, because my clients are describing it as this. So they've seen like a collection of energy in charge of it, not just one group, because I've tried to pinpoint which group, but they see a whole bunch, like Pleiadians, Arcturians, Lyrians, like a whole bunch of group behind it, like energy behind it. They don't see like one being running it. It's a collection, because intervention was needed because the 3D timeline, well, there's multiple reasons for this, but the 3D timeline sped up because of one of the reasons, because of all this technology. So there was a lot of fear that the technology was going to go too far without the consciousness. So one of the things that is happening with this 3-eye atlas, and I'll get into all the other things, is that there is right now solar codes being put into the sun through the use of this type of benevolent, I'll call it, ship. And this technology, this information, this upgrade, if you want to call it that, because it is an upgrade, is going to come at us like solar codes. And a lot of people don't, and one of the reasons I'm so glad that I'm going on here is a lot of people don't know what I'm receiving. You can go to my YouTube and even investigate yourself and listen to the recent transmissions I have. But one of my hypnosis clients says October 16th is a really important day to go outside and receive these solar codes. From that time on, you can receive these codes, but there's a couple things that people need to be aware of. So October 16th is when it begins. And to have the sunlight go on your skin, to not go into the sun with like sunscreen that day, don't have too much exposure, but to get enough sun on your, bare skin, and try not to have a bunch of oils on yourself. Allow some natural sunlight to go into your eyes. And what they said, to receive maximum benefit is to feel the sun's rays on your skin and tune your frequency with the sun. And what is happening as of October 16th, when these solar codes are being put in, is they create certain information pockets within each person that will keep expanding as our awareness is ready to handle more information. It's not like, for most people, this is going to happen all at once. They're going to go into the sun and they're going to have all this new information. It's going to work with their own consciousness but it will start to expand. So we're going to be receiving an upgrade, but this will really help maximize this upgrade. Another thing that I'm super upset about is that it's very helpful if for women to not have nail polish on. This was really surprising to me, but let me just tell you what's been coming through my hypnosis subjects for these solar codes and to receive, if you want to receive the maximum benefit. And of course, I think a lot of this has to do with people's belief system, but apparently the ancients understood that our hair and our nails work like antennas, and we glow, people glow, and we're made up of photons. So we excrete the light through our hair and fingernails. And it is very helpful just after October 16th to just have some moments where you don't have a type of coating over your nails, is what I heard. I can just keep talking. There's so much happening right now that is exciting. So the 3D reality needs to be helped because it's in alignment to be consumed a lot faster. Normally, when new technology comes, there's an agreement that there's a 10-year cycle with this new technology that humanity has to come into more of a higher state of consciousness to match the technology. And humanity is just not on the 3D level. So what they're doing is they're putting these solar codes in to, like I said, awareness pockets that will keep expanding and hopefully slow down this sped up 3D reality. Now, for the fourth and fifth dimension, it's different. For the fourth and fifth dimension, there's also a speeding up, but it's also creating more of awareness. So people will move faster into their ascension, in a sense. And one of the issues that a lot of people are having, because a lot of people are feeling so fatigued right now, is because of the compression of all these timelines. So you can really be bumping up against two different timelines, and it creates a lot of chaos and a lot of fighting, actually. So different people have different realities depending on their belief system. And literally it's because of this compression before the separation. And the separation is happening to a greater extent too, where people are literally in different timelines altogether. And not only does that create confusion, but that creates a different past than someone else's timeline. So there's multiple things like that. And also, when the 3i Atlas apparently comes into, when we are energetically receiving information from the 3i Atlas, this is also bringing in new material that humanity has to be primed for. Now, don't worry, if you can't go in the sun or you can't, go outside for whatever reason, it's still available to you. Maybe go into your window or whatever it is. It's available for everyone. But people have to be almost like primed a little bit for this new information. It would be too much for people if they didn't have that. And also, there is technology coming from Mars that people have to get ready for as well. And there's going to be according to my hypnosis subjects, a whole bunch of new information about Mars and the past lives people have had on Mars. And we have to have a level of awareness for this. And because knowledge is also very powerful. So there's a bunch of reasons why the 3i Atlas is putting in these solar codes. It's also shining the light on many people that have been hiding in the shadows. Now, it's really interesting because I think we just don't really understand shadow and evil and things like that. But as we were just talking about before, we all have a dark side. We all have a dark side. And so many of us think that the way to get into the light is to like kill the dark side within us, but it's really not. It's really to accept it. At least this is what I've been hearing. Accept it, understand that everybody has the dark side within them, and to understand that we have to work with this dark side. We don't have to push it away, but we work with it as we move closer to, this light. I know it's a lot and there's so much more, but if you had questions.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, as far as Three Eye Atlas is concerned, I mean, people see it as this kind of like very long ship, or astronomers say, well, it's a comet or something, but many people have been told that it's a ship of some kind. But what you're getting is that this is a ship that has many races on it, and that they are transmitting these codes that are kind of like going to the sun and then being spread out through our entire solar system. So is Three Eye Atlas really like a giant mothership?
Yeah, it's like a giant mothership. And my clients have also been saying that it's the Andromedans are the ones that are working to cloak it. And many different races have different agendas with helping it. But also, in a sense, the Three Eye Atlas, the consciousness, a lot of the consciousness driving it are very, very ancient. And so they are overseeing this experiment and making sure that we really do get the help that we're needing right now, especially because of everything going on. And so if this intervention didn't happen, then basically the 3D timeline would just collapse a lot faster, and it would just be consumed a lot quicker. So there's also certain races and negativity that has been siphoning off of all of humanity. And even though that's not allowed, there's been an agreement that humanity could keep evolving while this group siphons off this negative energy. And this has been going on for a while. And there's different technology to keep humanity asleep and kind of unaware. Now, a lot of this is coming to the surface where people are going to be more aware of this. And that's supposed to start to dismantle, but only for certain timelines. Certain timelines will continue to be consumed and opt into another cycle. So what they were saying is the fourth dimension timeline, they're going to continue with more disclosure, more awareness of what's really happening. And then the fifth dimension has pretty much focused on something totally different, more focused on these other realities that are bumping up all over, more focused on like fairies and other total dimensions just happening all at once here, and moving into more of this magical existence. So
you mentioned that it's very ancient. So are we talking about the ship itself being ancient?
No,
or are we talking about the ETs?
No, the ETs. But when I asked who are these ETs, they didn't give me like a name for them. They just said it's like this consciousness. Like you wouldn't find their physical bodies per se on there, but you would find their, I guess, light body, their essence there. So that's how they basically describe them. But they consider them very ancient, but no name associated with them whatsoever.
That's interesting. So if you were to go on their ship, you wouldn't actually see physical ETs. You just encounter a consciousness with the ship. Is that what you've been told?
That's what my hypnosis subjects have been saying. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. Well, I'd like to ask about a couple of races that and how they relate to the 3i Atlas. One is the Lyrans. I mean, they are a very ancient ET race, and also the Irma. So, yeah, can you talk about those?
Well, a lot of my clients are seeing that the Irma have a very heavy presence here. And I know that from my clients talking about this, that multiple, like I said, multiple races have a hand in putting information into the collection of solar codes going in. So they did mention the Lyrans as being one of the races behind this type of information going in to this upgrade as well. But I haven't heard specifically about the Irma playing a part in these solar codes, although I don't know, possibly because so many races are. But I do know that the Irma are witnessing a lot of the things happening through house cats. And so what they've said is that in the ancient times, we understood the truth about cats. And really, cats are sometimes emissaries for the Irma race, and cats are messengers. In the ancient times, people would remember they would use a cat's eye to find out about the past and the future. And cats can manipulate the energy in the whole entire house. That's one of the reasons why in the temples, even in Egypt, you'll see a bunch of temple cats, and it's because the consciousness in there calls the cats as protectors. So people understood more of the truth about cats back in the ancient times, but the certain races can actually monitor humanity through a cat. So cats are like spies to see how our consciousness is working. But that's another thing that is happening with the 3i Atlas, apparently, according to my hypnosis subjects, is that they're reading what's happening with humanity and our consciousness level, and it's being broadcast back to that consciousness and broadcast out to see if how we are doing in our ascension. Are we moving towards love? Are we still, where is humanity in a sense? Where are all the different timelines right now? Also, the Irma are watching their star seeds very heavily, and there's a lot of protection from the Irma. The Irma seem to be these very large, like they look like very large cats, like lions almost. So they're very powerful and protective of their star seeds. But a lot of people are starting to remember that they are star seeds and that they're very connected, and they're starting to receive guidance from other places. So there's so much happening.
Mm-hmm. Have you come across any clients who say that they are part of some kind of galactic envoy program? I mean, that is where one of the client will say, "Well, I'm a star seed, and I'm incarnated on Earth. That was my mission. But my partner from the Pleiades or from Sirius or whatever, he or she is up on the starships now, and and they're watching me and protecting me and that sort of thing." Have you heard of that?
I've never heard it called envoy like that before, but yes, definitely. I had a client who, under hypnosis, remembered that he was a part of the Irma, and he has a family somewhere else, and he is part of the Irma. Yeah, I think that happens quite often, actually. And sometimes people miss their partners and they feel like they just can't find the right partner in this life, and it's because they actually have a partner somewhere else. That's I think more common than not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I've come across a few people who have said that, and so yeah, that's very interesting. I wanted to ask you about President Trump And, I've come across quite a few, well, quite a few is probably too strong a word. I've come across several sources that say that President Trump is destined to be essentially the disclosure president and even become the world president. And I can't remember if it was you or if it was Suzanne Spooner. I think Suzanne said something along those lines more than a year ago. So can you elaborate on that?
Well, I just never asked. I never asked about that, so I really don't know. And my clients just never really talk about that. So I really don't know. I have an open mind, but it's not something I asked about. But I know Suzanne Spooner does have, if you go to her YouTube, she does have a video all about that. So that'll be interesting to revisit, especially now.
Yeah, I remember when I interviewed Suzanne. I've only done one interview. I'll have to do another one with her soon, where she talked about that, and that was well over a year ago. And since that time, I've had a couple of others that have been talking about Trump becoming the world president, and so that truly does intrigue me. Okay. So you haven't had anyone or haven't asked about that. So
I never asked about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. Well, I know that you've been putting out regular YouTube videos, and on one of them, I think from October 6th, you talk about splitting worlds. So, can you tell us about that?
Sure. So it's really interesting because when people see what's really here, they see like one reality has like this film over it. So it's keeping everyone asleep, like a big blanket of technology, of like mind numbing, because there is technology to keep everyone's mind sort of numb. And that's in one reality. But then if you look a little bit higher, it's less, and then even higher, it's non-existent. So right now what's happening is there is like a splitting of worlds, and the timelines are solidifying in these separate ways. So it's really quite fascinating because people really can have a completely different reality from someone else. And this is really happening. And it's pretty interesting, like to hear multiple clients talk about this under hypnosis. So you can check it out and see and listen for yourself, and to see how they describe, this splitting occurring. But I mean, even if you look at, people today, you can tell that you can sort of tell which reality people are aligning with. And what's also really interesting is with all these upgrades, people, like I said before, people glow. People have a glow to them. And the more people are working on themselves and tuning themselves more towards the light, they have a certain glow about them that's almost like whiter. And there's a heavy glow towards people, around people, and that will become way more apparent with people that are turning more towards like the dark agenda, more towards fear and the heavy or timelines. And they do have kind of like a muddled glow about them. And so it'll be easier for us all to tell, who is really working towards the light and who is really working towards the dark. It'll be a much easier thing. And I think it's really interesting because I was just speaking in San Diego at this conference, and there was this autistic woman there, and she only uses a letter board to communicate. I don't know if you've heard of the telepathy tapes, so she was on the telepathy tapes. So she communicated a message for the audience, and it was telepathy is on its way for all people. I mean, a lot of these autistic people that don't speak, they can actually speak telepathically. And that's something that I I learned as well, even in 2020, and I put in my first book, A Hypnotist's Journey to Atlantis. And what's interesting is there is a new race of humans, and it's really what we're supposed to understand is that these disabilities have created so many new possibilities and understanding of our reality. And they are kind of leading the way of tuning into telepathy, tuning into these other realms, and showing us how we ourselves are going to move into this type of reality. So I guess what I want to say is that they are almost like the forefront of these new abilities that we are going to possess, but they almost like are showing us what is coming for these higher timelines in a sense, because the lower timelines it seems like they are going to go very far with the technology and have the chip in the brain and more controlled, unfortunately. But I mean, you really can't do this wrong, because this is a learning experience. And so your soul, for whatever reason, wants to go through that, if that's the timeline that you seem to find yourself on. But I don't think it would be possible for any of your listeners to be on that timeline. That would have to be for someone that really doesn't want any type of soul growth, or they think they don't want any soul growth, and they are really consumed with just fear and allowing themselves really to be consumed and be controlled.
Well, I know George Cavassalis, and he talked about this kind of split into four. Humanity would split off into four groups, and one group would kind of stay with the cabal because they do like the whole competitive domination hierarchical system created by the cabal. That some people just like that; they prefer to be part of that. Another group will kind of like embrace the transhumanist. That they want to become transhumanist, become cyborgs, live for centuries using implants and all of that. And another group wants to kind of like almost be harvested, go off into what he calls the God matrix, where, whether it's Yahweh, whether it's Enki, whether it's Jehovah or Allah or whatever, that people would go into that group and they would be harvested. And the fourth group, he said, would be the kind of like the organic humans, the ones that work with Mother Earth and with the Father Son, and that they are all into the natural process. So is that feasible? I mean, do your clients kind of like pretty much say similar things?
They do, which is really interesting. They say very similar things. They don't describe 4 timelines. They usually describe 3. So the way they describe it is, yes, the 3D, the very negative timeline, I'm just calling it that because it's just more dense timeline, is in alignment to be consumed. And apparently there was a sphere brought to Earth that has all these codes that if worst case scenario happens and the 3D timeline has to be reset, that humanity from that timeline could restart again. But the 3D timeline is in a very precarious position. So that timeline, when there's a whole bunch of things that are predicted to happen according to the higher self. So, there's so much. I mean, a lot of I'll just tell you about the timelines that I've been hearing first, and then I'll go into the predictions. So the negative timeline wants to be controlled in a sense. They have not mastered listening to themselves yet. They put other people ahead of themselves as more powerful, and that's really not what we came here to do. We came to step into our power, for many of us on this ascension path. The middle timeline goes down the same trajectory as the gray extraterrestrials, and the highest timeline becomes more magical. They become the organic humans. They really step into their power. They are in the rest of the universe, the awakened human is seen as the most powerful, actually. It's being a being like Shiva or Buddha or the fully enlightened human is way more powerful because of all the emotions that they possess, which emotions act like portals through the universe. So what has been predicted is that there's so many different potentials, many different potentials, but there may be a comet that has a tail that goes in front of the sun. And if this does happen, it may trigger a solar event. And the solar event may trigger a dismantling of our veil. And then everyone would see all kinds of things. It would be disclosure on a big scale. And people would really freak out if they're not aware of certain things. But since all of this ascension is really an internal shift, everyone would shift internally as a collective, and there would be a merging of these timelines because everyone would be aware that there are all these other beings, that all these things are real. Since what this evolution is a shift in consciousness, is an internal shift, then the timelines would be way more solidified with the use of this knowledge. So people that are stepping into the highest timeline, it's like, oh, all these things are real. I'm really believing it now. I'm stepping deeper into this highest timeline. Same with the middle timeline. Each person individually chooses, but these timelines become very solid with this type of experience, with this type of merging of timelines. And then the negative timeline is just in alignment to be consumed or possibly end. But there's so many things that are predicted. So there's many opportunities and nudges, they're called, like the 3-eye atlas, like these solar codes, like certain light events. The Schumann resonance is going crazy. There's there's a collective of multiple energies that are trying to help humanity receive information, expand our awareness, and allow ourselves to choose, in a sense. And there's a lot of help right now. There's also the prediction that possibly if there is a light event of some sort, that this will actually light up all the pyramids all over the earth, because the pyramids are apparently set in a pattern of a Merkaba, and each person has a Merkaba. So if you expand higher and you look at all of this from a higher perspective, you see that we're just a reflection of everything and vice versa. So the earth and all the pyramids and the actual Merkaba of the earth will light up. And then each human's Merkaba will light up, and it will begin to spin, and it will nudge people. People will be nudged to either choose, am I going to embrace love? Am I going to embrace the law of one, in a sense? Or am I going to embrace, do I want to continue being separate? Do I want to continue to pretend that I am separate? And what's also happening is our blood types, our bloodlines are being activated. So since throughout many generations, like this is very ancient, information has been stored within certain bloodlines, like the Rh negative blood. So there's extraterrestrial components to this that have special abilities. It was even safeguarded back in ancient cultures in like the Nakal Brotherhood, where they were monitoring and trying to safeguard information within the Rh negative blood. So there's a big effort to keep it pure so that it didn't get muddled down. But this is starting to activate now. All the blood types are very special, and all the blood types, when they're activated, they help the collective. So when the Rh negative blood type gets activated, and again, this is basically the truth is that we are all one. We are supposed to work with each other. Each person adds to this collective consciousness. When this gets activated, this in turn activates all the other bloodlines and abilities within each people. So the Rh negative blood has different extraterrestrial abilities and actual energy within that bloodline. Same with all the other ones, they're just different. But this one is very important because as this activates, we're going to have energy technology that's stemming from us as a collective. Another prediction is that we're going to start to mend the division that's really happening between the divine feminine and masculine, actually. And so it's predicted that when we start to mend this, that we bring ourselves back into alignment in a deeper sense. And this also helps to stop a lot of the fighting that's going on, because a lot of the fighting is too much of one side. Like when the greed and control kind of pushed out the divine feminine from each and every one of us, we became imbalanced. And when this rebalancing occurs, there's a couple things that are being predicted that not only is information from other civilizations where we became imbalanced going to resurface very soon, and with the help of the 3-Eye Atlas. So we're going to be soon receiving a lot more disclosure, and we're going to be receiving information about Mars and other civilizations where we tried this before. And then we're going to, someone's supposedly going to rediscover the second Sphinx that's in Egypt, because Egypt is it acts like a clock. So the Sphinx that you can see is witnessing the rise of the civilization, the rise of the age. It faces the east. The second Sphinx was facing the west. When that second Sphinx, or pieces of this second Sphinx, like a clock, get rediscovered, it means we really are ending that old age. And so this is just telling a story, basically, of an ending of an old age and a beginning of an entirely new golden age. Some of the predictions are just that after this October 16th solar pocket, that humanity will, the consciousness will start to expand in different layers. So people are going to start to become more telepathic. Our abilities are going to start coming online. Maybe people even recognize this now, that they are starting to receive more guidance from their higher self or from their galactic family. They're going to start to be able to use magic again. And even like the ability to move objects with their mind. This is something we had in the past, and this is something that we actually can do. And people will start to be able to use this again and start to harness our minds in different ways. So that's some of the things that I've been receiving. But I was telling you that my clients also see other things happening right now, because there's so much happening, and they see that there's this group of negative extraterrestrials, actually, unfortunately, they call them, and my clients are very clear with the name, the Maxurians. I've never heard of them before, but that is the name that they call them. And that this group has a negative agenda. Essentially, what happened was they were a benevolent race, but they went too far with greed. This always seems to happen over and over again. Went too far with greed. And now, because when a civilization goes too far with any imbalance, they end up having to reset. Well, they're basically losing their planet, or whatever you want to call that, where they're living. So Earth is known to have a lot of fear, and it's known to put out a lot of this energy that nefarious beings like to siphon, like to feed from. So there's an attempt to possibly collect some more of this fear, show up as another object in the sky that would look like it was heading to destroy the moon, actually, is what is being predicted. But this will not happen. I was told over and over again that if this does show up, if this potential does show up, that you just wouldn't be able to destroy the moon. So to not to buy into the fear, if that is coming, if that is the next thing on the horizon, to just, the more we tune into love and not fear and start to put our trust more into our higher self, into our team, then this in turn is basically helping us tremendously, and it helps with our ascension. All my clients are being asked to tune more into trust.
Now, you did this video, What is Coming, and I think that you've been discussing some of these future events, and the moon, the Maxurians, the split, the Martians. Will we see some of these things happening like before the split, before this kind of like splitting into these different timelines, that there'll be something like with these Maxurians, or whether it'll be the Martians arriving, or something else before the split? I mean, is this splitting something that is going to occur kind of like in a few years, and we have all these events lined up leading up to the split, or maybe facilitating the split? Or can we expect the split to happen soon and all these events to happen soon afterwards?
So that's a really good question, because I asked this question too, just for myself personally. And so the split is happening now. It's already been underway. It's already happening. But so for me, when I asked the higher selves of my hypnosis subjects, what will I witness? And they said, I won't witness these like Maxurians hitting the moon. I won't witness that. It will be completely different for the timeline that I'm on. But they have told me that I'm very heavy in the 3D reality, because I want to know, what am I doing? Why am I not? How come? What am I doing wrong? Like I do all the things, like I meditate, I'm a really nice person. And they're like, no, you have to understand that there's many people like you, and you volunteered. So what they said is that I volunteered. I've already made this. I've already done this. And so I agreed to be very present in like the 3D reality, as many people have, as a volunteer, to show people how to make this transition. But I'm not going anywhere, apparently. Whatever. But it's not so for many people, it's not something they're doing wrong. It's just maybe perhaps they have volunteered and they've already energetically made that transition, is what they've said I've done. So there's another aspect of me over there, or what you would consider the fifth dimension, working with me and being like, good job, Sarah, keep going. Okay, well, I'm sending you information over here, and vice versa, is what they've said.
It's funny you say that, because I've been feeling the same, exactly the same. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm totally tuned into this 5D reality. I'm all there, but yet I seem to be immersed in this 3D struggle and fighting. Why is? And my thoughts are consumed by this person said this person said that, and it's like, how come I'm locked into this 3D? But yeah, what you said just makes total sense.
I mean, it makes sense for you too. Obviously, energetically, you probably already made that shift. And for many people, probably, a lot of your viewers probably too. And they are in their 3D reality so that they can maybe communicate with other people or shine their light and help them. But they've already done this. So, or maybe they've done this in multiple places already, and they're just like a seasoned soul. But yes, the timelines are splitting now. They have been for a while. Okay. And so some people will not see these same things. And that's a big issue as far as fighting, because people, as these timelines are splitting, the past is very different in these different timelines. just like the 3D reality has this dense fog keeping everyone asleep. In the reality above it, there's less fog. In the reality above that, there's no fog. So these are very different experiences already. And it's going to continue to be that way, where people are going to continue to fall away from your existence. You're not really even going to come in contact with them when you're in totally different timelines. But it does seem like the timelines are solidifying. So people become more anchored in a certain timeline. And then you can have the feeling, and this is happening to some clients, of being in multiple. So you're in one and you're like, oh, I'm totally in this, but no, you're in this other one at the same, same hour.
Okay, well, that's very reassuring because, yeah, sometimes I do wonder about that. How come I seem to be so locked into this timeline? But it makes total sense that yourself, many other star seeds, that we're here and we're going to kind of try and help this 3D timeline to achieve its optimal potential, and then at some point we're there in the 5D.
Yeah.
Okay, manifesting our perfect reality and we're in paradise, whatever.
Yeah, for a lot of starseeds, there's really nothing they need to do. They just came here to anchor the light, basically. And by going anywhere, they spread all this light and it helps other people on a certain level.
Well, that's important that you say that. And just kind of unpack that a little bit more. Are you saying that, it's not as though some star seeds have to go and help awaken people that the extraterrestrials are real, or that we have all these past lives and all of that. That it's not about distilling information to people, but it's all about being present, being in a joyful place, being in a loving place, being forgiving, compassionate. Is that really what many starseeds' job is?
For many starseeds, all they have to do is just be, because they're anchoring in a very high frequency. So they literally don't have to do anything. They could literally just stay in their house, even in their house. It's affecting their whole town. But it is always better to go out and just to be around people, because they're transmitting codes, light codes from their eyes, just from their frequency, from their energy. It's lighting up certain places. And they're actually working with the grid system of Earth, actually, even whether or not they realize that or not, because they're anchoring in a higher frequency, and it's going through the Earth and to the inner Earth. And it's actually helping so much more than they realize, but all they have to do is just be.
Okay, that's very important. Thanks for sharing that. Now, you talked a little bit earlier about the bloodlines and how important they are. I know you did a video on the royal bloodlines on Earth, and when I saw that, what I immediately thought of is this Spritz Fringmeier book, like the 13 ruling bloodline families, and how they have developed their system of control on the Earth. But it seems that you're talking about, or are you talking about something different?
Yeah, I'm talking about something different, but there are bloodlines that are connected, to what my clients have said, it's like a negative faction, like a very reptilian, with negative energy connected to beings that are siphoning off of energy when people are in a state of fear. And so they have anchored in certain people that they give lots of benefits to for doing their bidding, basically. But no, I'm talking about the population that is basically just unaware of this, or not working toward with that group. I'm talking about the codes are within each and every one of us. And so we're, as consciousness is raising, as we become aware of certain things, it activates us, and it activates our bloodlines, and it activates the abilities within each person. And these are lighting up. So certain bloodlines carry much more than just like different blood types even carry different abilities, and these are waking up. And the law of one is really true. What we bring to the group activates within all of us. So as one blood type, one bloodline activates, we all activate. But it's interesting you brought up 13, because there has been like a missing 13th zodiac. The 13 has been considered like a bad number, but really that's a hidden number. That's the basically people would consider the divine feminine to be ruled by the 13, that the 13 is such a powerful number. And as all this hidden information becomes more known, then we can actually use certain, like even just keys again, which a 13 is like a key almost. And there is a 13th zodiac that people will become more aware of. And it really, all this is finding the power within each and every person. And that's just activating in a sense. But yes, so with the blood types, I've noticed for many years that the A blood type seems to have a lot of connection to like Norse information, fairies. And then there's the telltale sign if you have the A blood type and anemia, because the Druids had anemia, because so many of the Druids were even reincarnated fae or fairies. And during this Iron Age, iron was so upsetting to this group that they put a sign within them that they would show up in a reincarnation with anemia as a clue. And so there's this blood type being activated, which is like harnessing information from fairies, from ancient Druid information. And so as information becomes more acceptable, it activates within your whole bloodline and ancestral line, because each person is the leading ancestor. So there's truth to saying what you're doing is healing your ancestral line. It's also, you are the leading ancestor, and flowing through your bloodline is all these abilities. These are becoming more acceptable. They're activating with everything that's hitting the planet. So then the B bloodline, the B blood type, usually in this general carries information from like the Pacific Islands, and wisdom that comes even from Lemuria, say. So people with the B blood type can often tune into different plants, read plants, communicate with plants, develop different type of communication with trees. Trees are healers. And so all this is becoming more available to us. And the AB blood type seems to be a combination of both of those. AB blood type seems to be very balanced, and oftentimes those are spiritual leaders. It's really interesting. And then the Rh negative blood type carries genetic and energy information from certain groups of extraterrestrials. Even Toth said that he put information in this blood type for this experience, for this activation. So people with the Rh negative blood have an easier time usually to move objects with their mind. They're very sometimes psychic, and sometimes they have the disposition to be in more of a leadership role. So it's really quite fascinating. Oh, and the O blood type is really powerful and becoming more activated, because everyone in Atlantis had the O blood type. And even if you look at the tribes, or in North America, and many of the Native Americans have the O blood type. So this is carrying a lot of information from Atlantis and all of the other ones, because the O is like a circle carrying it all. So gosh, there's so much to this, but in a sense, we're all being activated, and we're all activating each other. And but just don't forget to go outside and receive some of these light codes that will help you activate, because, some people, unfortunately, they go from like their job into the car to their house, and they're not receiving as much of the benefit from nature and from the, or will receive as much of this information from these solar codes that are being placed for our benefit. So it'd be helpful to know this.
Well, while we're on the topic of bloodlines, I remember the Dan Brown series about and talking about the Knights Templars, and I know you did something on the Knights Templars. So how do the Knights Templars fit into this whole thing? I mean, were they defenders of the Magdalene bloodline?
I've never heard of Dan Brown before, but then again, I don't really research anyone except for my hypnosis subjects. But the Knights Templar did understand about certain bloodlines, especially when it comes to Jesus. So the Knights Templar hid information in the symbol of the rose, and there is the sacred sisterhood of the rose. And this comes from information that basically was like Christ's teachings, information when it comes to certain balancing of the divine feminine masculine that Christ had. And so a lot of this type of information and information about the bloodlines was stored in places like they said the Rh negative blood had a symbol and a meaning to it. It was Rh negative, like Rose House. And that's why it was Rose Line, like Roslyn Chapel. And they would put the symbol of the rose there because it had a lot of different meanings. It was showing that there was hidden information in this chapel, hidden information about the blood of Christ, basically, and that was also hiding information about the divine feminine. So when you look at the rose that they were using to symbolize all of this, the rose comes even further back from Atlantis. Like, one of the quickest ways to receive this type of information is to use rose oil, because rose in itself is such a high frequency. So it bypasses the conscious mind when you work with the rose oil, and it can remind you not only of the golden age of Atlantis, but also of like the divine feminine. The divine feminine is sometimes depicted as the rose, and the divine feminine, not just in women, but in men too. It's that beautiful rebalancing. And when people describe like the fifth dimension, they see rose bushes everywhere. So it's a symbol. It's like a teaching. It's something that has been safeguarded. And some people have seen that at certain times, the Knights Templar did understand to safeguard certain things, teachings and artifacts. The Knights Templar in people's memories took a lot of information and hid it in off of this island of Nova Scotia. And they hid certain things like crystals, but some of the most valuable treasure are actually books that hold like the true teachings about the earth, about the rose, about energy, about working, with source and each other, and also our history, and basically the history of all the battles. But what's really interesting is when people look into some of this information, what they see is that the information really looks like this. It shows the history throughout all the cosmos, like not just this universe, but all the other universes. And it shows that basically you could break everything down to the battle of light and dark, right? It's a battle of good versus evil. But the truth in all the books and all the things that people can investigate under hypnosis is that the good always wins in the end. But it's basically like something that we've hid from ourselves for this experiment. But it always wins in the end. That's why we're still here. If it didn't win in the end, we wouldn't be here. It's as simple as that. So we will win. this has already played out before in a sense too. And all the same players are back again now, actually, is what my clients have been saying under hypnosis. So you will run into the same players, the same key figures are back doing the same things, just in different bodies. And where most of us have done this before as a collective too. So I guess I wouldn't say most of us, many of us have done this before. And we wanted to do this differently this time. And the biggest thing we wanted to do was to listen to ourselves this time and not to fall victim to the control, greed, and be consumed.
So just kind of like bringing things to a close now, what would you say, Sarah, to people that have been watching this, that have been kind of like, fighting the good fight for many years or decades, that they feel like they're at the end of the road, they feel like that they can't hang on anymore, maybe they're suffering from some illness or something. I mean, what would you say to them? Do they have to have, just hang in there? You don't have to wait much more time. I mean, what would you say to people like that?
Oh my gosh, it's happening now. It's not really that they have to wait any longer at all. It's happening now. And I would say you are definitely not alone. It's funny you bring that up because that's basically what everyone is saying. They're really sick of all this stuff, not knowing or no disclosure. This is finally happening. It's happening. And intervention is even happening now. Go outside October 16th and after. And, the best thing that my clients always talk about, and you'll even hear it if you listen to any of my videos, is stillness is key. The more still you can become, the easier this is, as we're so taught to go, 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 but it's in the stillness that we can really connect with our higher self and make any type of changes that we want, that the stillness is powerful. But many people do find they have some sort of health challenge when they're moving from one timeline to another, or moving up even in timeline. People will get a physical issue or feel sick or feel tired as a teacher tool. And so that issue is really making them, it's like they have no choice but to step in alignment with what they came here for, to really step into their true purpose. So if you find yourself having a physical issue, if you can look at that physical issue as a teacher, I know it's so hard, but to really find out what it's teaching you, it's always teaching everyone to step into who they really are. So perhaps it's to leave a relationship that's not working out, causing you to feel sick, to leave a situation, or whatever it is. If you listen deeply to yourself, you can find out the root cause. And then once you find out the root cause, you can work towards releasing it, because the body doesn't have to be a messenger anymore. But so many people are very tired, but it is happening now.
Oh. That's good to know. I'm sure that'll be very reassuring that, yep, it's happening now. And October 16, I will definitely be out there on the ocean, paddleboarding around, absorbing that sun.
Yeah, and try if you can, just to get a little sunlight in your eyes, like without glasses.
Definitely. So your website, you want to tell people about your website and upcoming events, and if they want to get books or in touch with you?
Sure. You can go to my website, theholistichuhypnotist.com, and I have a few workshops coming up, which I'm really excited about. You can go book a workshop or take one of my classes, whatever, if you're interested. And if you want to research yourself, you can, I put out everything that I'm getting through my clients on my website, and all my books are on Amazon and Audible.
Wonderful. Okay, so you got Journey into Magic and Transformation on November 14 to 16.
Yeah. so excited about that.
Yeah,
Yes.
looks interesting.
Yeah, we're just going to learn magic and doing group past life regressions. I have these people that are actually going to teach some like how to make talismans, it's really going to be fun. And I have one of my really good hypnosis subjects, and I'm going to put her under hypnosis, and then everybody there can ask their own question, whatever they want, because this hypnosis subject is so good. And I mean, she doesn't even need anything. It's like Edgar Casey. You can find out anything.
Wonderful. Well, great having you on the show again. I mean, you've been a rich source of information and inspiration, and I really do congratulate you on being such a kind of wonderful representation of the divine feminine, and really helping people connect and understand the importance of their higher self. I think that's really where we need to go. So thank you, Sarah, for all the work you do.
Thank you so much, too. Thank you for all the work you're doing, putting all this information out there. I really appreciate it. I'm sure everyone really appreciates it.
Thank you, Sarah. Aloha.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.